Hello.
Hello, lovely to meet you.
You as well. You made it. See, it wasn't too hard.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, yes. Well, welcome everyone to NiCHE Conversations. I'm Jessica DeWitt, one of the editors here at the network in Canadian History and Environment. And today I am joined by Griffiths. Do you want to tell us more about yourself?
Um, yes, I would describe myself probably first as an artist, second as a
Mm-hmm.
historian, and doing a PhD in fine art at the moment, but it's kind of cross-disciplinary with history and bits and pieces.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking more about that today. So what was it? Back in May 1st, we published Visualizing Data Taxonomy, I can't talk, taxonomy,
No.
can't say that word. I'm going to skip it. It's early here. I'm
I
not
know what you mean.
Gender and botanic connections in the long 18th century. Woo! And this was part of our digital natural history series, which ran in for May and every Friday and Monday in May. And yeah, we're going to be talking more about that. And firstly, it was based on your PhD work. So I thought we'd start off by talking about, what is the topic of your PhD thesis? How did you come to this topic? And, what do you mean when you call it practice-based?
Okay. So, as an artist, I've always been interested in museological processes.
Mm-hmm.
So, collecting, categorizing, repairing, and displaying it, and how those kind of practices are used in art. So,
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at Carl Linnaeus, who was the father of taxonomy, he's called in the 18th century, and he laid down all sorts of taxonomical systems. He also set up the or devised the binomial nomenclature. So if you say Homo
Mm-hmm.
sapiens, you have two ways to describe every species of animals and plants. So I was very interested in him. And so I was looking at his botanical taxonomy and how he prioritized the male stamen over the female stigma when he was categorizing plants. That's how he categorized plants at that time. And I was interested in how that reflected on a feminine culture and social status within the elite of the 18th century.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah. And I really appreciate this post in that it looks at, well, we can get into the digital methodology, but I love the visualizations that you use and the idea of, breaking down these networks and kind of getting into these details of these individuals' lives. And so for our second question, I wonder if you could describe more like what kind of digital methods you're using and some of the sources that you're using to create these digitizations.
Yeah, okay. So as an artist, I'm interested in, if I say normal kind of artistic
Mm-hmm.
methods of display, painting and sculpturing and that kind of thing. But I'm really interested in using data visualization and these current um, kind of knowledge graphs
Mm-hmm.
to feed into the work. And what I'm using as source is all sorts of things. I kind of look at it as unbinding all the different either primary or secondary sources that kind of relate to
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, this subject. So they could be, I've been looking at maternity records and men midwives of the 18th century
Mm-hmm.
this morning, how men kind of got into taking over from the female midwives. I think in the post that I did for you, the blog that I did for you, I was looking at an apothecary. I
Mm-hmm.
was looking at James Pettifer and his networks, and I've been kind of pairing people up. So whereas he was a collector and an apothecary and had vast networks of suppliers for his collection, I was also looking at a female herb woman who, we don't know anything about those women. We don't know when they were born. She's mentioned in the coronation procession of King George III. And so she strew, with her other herb women, like bushels of flowers in front of the coronation procession. But that's all we know about her. We don't know if she was elite or if she was where she came from, what her background. So I've kind of, I've been looking at descriptions of the King's coronation procession, and then I'll go and look at something quite, modern today. So it's building a new archive and kind of trying to visualize that for people in these knowledge graphs. That I think all that, or a lot of that information is already there. I wouldn't say I'm contributing anything, well, not anything substantial to the historical side of the project, but I really hope that by unpicking all these different sources and putting them together in a database, it will give people different insights into research that's been done in so many different subjects.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're describing is also just like making connections between things that people may not necessarily readily see as connected. And yeah, that's really cool. The breadth of knowledge that you're visualizing. And also like it, like you can tell that you're an artist because I don't know, I think that these digitizations are quite, they're art in a way, right? I find them they're fun just to look at, to step back without looking at the details, right? And then going in and diving in and seeing the actual like historical details. Like it works on both levels. And in that way, I think perhaps makes things more accessible, more inviting, perhaps, to explore. Like individuals don't have to, read through 100-page historical document. They can dive into this very engaging chart that you've created, and I think it's really cool.
I hope so. And because it's interactive, I kind of, or it will be. I mean, it wasn't
Yeah.
in the blog. It will be interactive. I kind of think it's a bit like going into a library and finding a book that you didn't know. You go in for one thing and you come out with something that was next to it on the shelf that kind of looked a bit more interesting. And I think if you kind of have an entry point of people that you might know or might be displayed in different ways, then you can kind of wander about for ages, making your own connections and looking for your own, your own paths. Yeah. So that's what I'm hoping.
That's neat. I'm really excited for the finished product. You should check in back in with us. Perhaps we can like publish a blog like announcing that it exists and like people can use it, because that would be really, really neat to follow up with this. I think it's a very exciting project. I love it. So the other part of the blog that you published with us and your thesis, and you've hinted at it, is gender. So I thought that we could wrap up today by, talking a bit more about how this data visualization, what it reveals about gender and within botanical science.
Okay, well, I think it reveals. I wouldn't say I was a botanist. I mean,
Yeah.
you could question any sorts of plants, and I probably wouldn't be able to tell you what they were. But I think on a wider kind of theme, they very definitely show how women were excluded through a lack of education, particularly in typically women would not be educated in the ancient languages, and because publications were typically written, particularly botanical publications were particularly written in Latin, that excluded them right from the start. They weren't educated in universities. So it highlights that. It highlights what was I going to say? Oh, the society and the kind of culture of societies and organizations
Mm-hmm.
where men grouped together to share knowledge, but women were very much, you know, in that domestic environment, and so they didn't have the same sort of access to people that were interested in the same, I mean, in societies and in organized organizations like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it very much reveals that. It does reveal that they had networks that were kind of more, maybe they socialized through their craft, or maybe they constructed print rooms and collected prints and put those kinds of things together, and but it was very, very informal.
Yeah.
They weren't formal networks.
Yeah, they kind of like bypass the academic and more official networks and created their own, which is a indication of some craftiness, I think, some ingenuity. And I like that you pointed out the Latin issue, because I knew that women weren't educated in Latin, and I knew that a lot of scientific papers back in the day were written in Latin, but I never put those two things together, like thinking, oh, that would exclude women, right? Like those things. Anyways, I just love like when those connections are made, you know, in my mind, and I think that's why these shorter blogs are so useful, because they bring those little details to the fore, and anyways, it's very interesting, and as I said, I think this project is really fascinating. Are you at the beginning of this project, or
I'm doing it part-time,
okay?
so I'm about 2.5 years
Yeah.
through. I'm about half, so
Well,
just kind of getting all the data together and
yeah,
thinking about how to put it along with all the other, you know, the
yeah,
written and the visual
yeah,
work alongside.
yeah. Well,
So
I know
yeah,
that takes a long time. You know, I did it full time, and it still took me 7.5 years to finish my PhD. So let's hope it doesn't take you 14
I don't think they'll let me take 14 years.
um, well, thank you for joining me today, Anne. This was a really fun conversation. It was nice to get to know you and your work more closely. And yeah, don't be a stranger, and definitely reach out to us if you want to, like when it's done. We would love to, you know, tell people more about it.
That'd
And
be great.
yeah.
You can come and test the visualizations
Oh,
and have a wander
yeah,
through.
that would be awesome. Okay. Well, thanks for joining me. Take care.
Thanks ever so much for having me. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.